What happened when you finally stopped being your family's unpaid caretaker? For 3 years, I'd been washing my grandparents' feet every morning at 7, and every evening at 7 using imported salts and massage patterns that took 45 minutes because my grandfather believed only I had the spiritual energy to prevent toe demons. When I got accepted to a fully funded graduate program across the state, my mother cornered me waving the acceptance letter like evidence of a crime. You cannot abandon them now or they'll disinherit all of us. And you know your grandfather thinks anyone else who touches his feet is trying to steal his soul through his toes. I looked at my grandparents, where my grandfather was accusing the mailman of being a foot vampire, and decided to teach my mother the routine and leave anyway. 3 hours after I arrived at campus, my mother called screaming because my grandfather had barricaded himself in the bathroom with a baseball bat after she'd tried to touch his feet. He dumped all of grandma's heart medication in the toilet and says he's making protection soup. The next morning, my grandmother had somehow gotten her foot stuck in the ceiling fan, trying to air dry them properly because my mother had used the wrong towel, and apparently that meant her feet would rot off within hours. By day 3, my grandfather had started wearing tissue boxes as shoes because he didn't trust anyone to check his toes for what he called communist infections, and my grandmother was soaking her feet in the neighbor's koi pond because the foot basin wasn't blessed by the right saints. My mother found her at midnight negotiating with the fish about which ones had healing powers while the neighbors threatened to call the police. I couldn't stop laughing when she sent me a photo of my grandmother knee-deep in the pond wearing her nightgown and pointing at specific fish like she was selecting lobsters at a restaurant. Within a week, my grandfather had constructed what he called a medical fortress in the garage using every cleaning supply in the house mixed together in buckets to create protective foot barriers that sent 2 paramedics to the hospital with chemical burns. My grandmother had started a neighborhood cult where she charged people $50 to watch her perform interpretive dances that would cure their foot ailments, and when it didn't work, she blamed their negative energy and demanded double payment. The health department showed up after my grandmother tried to open an unlicensed foot clinic in the basement where she was painting people's feet with house paint from the hardware store that she insisted had medicinal properties. For their 50th wedding anniversary, my grandparents decided to throw a foot-themed party to prove they didn't need anyone's help. My grandfather filled the entire swimming pool with foot soak solution using 400 pounds of bath salts, which created a crystallized salt mountain that trapped 3 delivery drivers who'd tried to drop off the party supplies. My grandmother had ordered what she thought was a foot massage therapist, but was actually a dog groomer who showed up with clippers and tried to shave my grandfather's legs while he chased her around the yard with a pool noodle screaming about foot privacy. Things got even worse when my grandfather decided conventional medicine was a conspiracy and started creating his own antibiotics by leaving meat in the sun, then rubbing it on his feet, which caused a fungal infection so severe the doctor said he'd never seen anything like it in 40 years of practice. Your grandfather's feet looked like a science experiment went wrong and gained consciousness. Meanwhile, my grandfather had tied approximately 300 rubber bands around his ankles to prevent what he called foot demons from crawling up his legs, and had lost all circulation to his feet, which were now purple and swollen like eggplants requiring EMTs to use bolt cutters, while he screamed that they were stealing his foot virginity. That same night, my grandmother tried to cure him by wrapping his feet in raw chicken and prayer candles, which set the couch on fire when she fell asleep during the ritual. The flames spread to the curtains, and within minutes, the entire living room was engulfed while my grandparents refused to leave because my grandfather couldn't walk with his infected, swollen feet, and my grandmother wouldn't abandon him, insisting the smoke was cleansing their foot chakras. The fire department had to physically drag them out while they were both unconscious from smoke inhalation, and my mother sobbed watching paramedics perform actual CPR this time while our childhood home burned to the ground behind them. My parents now pay a team of specialists $23,000 a month to wash my grandparents' feet the way I did for free.